Well, today let's talk about filling medium-sized holes in your boat. It's a pretty common type of thing. Luckily, I don't really have any that need to be done on the boat at this time. So I made this board. This is my version of G10, just kind of using this. And what I did is I drilled a hole in it, and I've already flared it out because it just makes so much dust. I just thought it'd be easier to do that ahead of time. Now in doing this, it's a 12-to-1 ratio. So if this were an inch thick, I would go out 12 inches, on an angle, beveling that. So a ½ inch would be 6 inches, a quarter of an inch, 3 inches, which this is just a little over a quarter of an inch. Now the next thing that we're going to make believe here is that this is the outside of the boat, or a visible surface. This side is going to be from the inside, like in the lazarette or in a cabinet somewhere, where this is what you're going to see on the finished side of it. And we want to do that so that we don't have a lot of other things to fix and make it look right. Now, when we finish this, we'll talk about the process of doing this below the waterline, which is a little bit different, but basically the same principles. So here, the first thing is, well, we've got our hole that we need to fix. Next, let's get our supplies ready. Now, I'm not going to enumerate every one of these. I think you can tell what rubber gloves are and all of these things, but we want to get all of this ready. But a couple of the little things that we're going to do that's a little different here is when we get ready to fill this, because this is going to be the outside of the boat, we're going to take a piece of foam that I have, and I've coated it in a plastic, and we're going to tape that to the back of this so that when we fill the front here, we're not just going to be shoving it out the front, even though we are going to be using fiberglass to fill that with. And I have pre-cut all the fiberglass so that when we get ready to work, even though I'm using the slow cure epoxy, we'll have all of our sheets ready to go. And let's talk a little bit about the process here. After we mix our epoxy, I'm going to take a little bit, put it in this other mixing cup, and add some fairing compound to it to thicken it, so that when we get ready, we're going to take that and put a little bit of that in here first. Then we'll have our regular epoxy, and we start with the smallest pieces first and build up. So let's get ready. So we'll start with one pump of resin, and this will probably be enough. I'm not quite sure, but we're going to be close. And then one hardener. Remember, we want to mix this now for 3 minutes. All right, there's our timer for 3 minutes. Let's put a little bit of that in one of these mixing cups. Not going to need much. Then we'll add our fairing compound, just a little bit at a time here. Get that mixed up nice. Okay, that's nice and mixed. Now, I didn't show this. I should have shown this. I did wash this off with acetone before we get ready. But now, I'm just going to spread a little bit of that right inside here. So we don't want air bubbles. Now we can do some repairs on this on the other side, but now we're ready to start putting our fiberglass on. So we started with our smallest piece. Then we're going to finish this, and I've had about 5 sheets here now. And I've got just enough epoxy and when we use the roller, we don't want to push really hard. We just want to help get all the air bubbles out, because if you push too hard, you're just going to push the epoxy right out of this. And I'll show you when now we're going to let this dry overnight. We're going to come back tomorrow and work on it. And I just realized I didn't have the camera down on the correct angle for you to see when I put the thickened epoxy in. But basically, just kind of work that in a little bit. We'll see that more tomorrow when we take our backing plate off here and check it out. And it looks like we got a good flow on this. I'll see you back tomorrow and we'll finish this off. All right, guys, it's been a day. Got our repair, and you can see we're going to have to do a little bit of sanding. I'm just going to hand sand it. That's all we really need to do. But let's see how this turned out on the boat side of things. Wow, look at that. Smooth, a little bit of sanding, hand sanding, that's all that's going to take. And on the other side, the same thing, just a little bit of sanding. Now, I'll do that here in just a minute. I'm going to do it inside the boat. I normally wouldn't do this in the boat. But, 35 knot gust out there for the last 2 or 3 days. We'll just do it in here. And this is where a vacuum cleaner is your best friend when working on a boat. Because let's say you were doing this in the cabin and you needed to work in here. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with, where is it here? I didn't get the right sandpaper. I usually start this off with a 60 grit. I grabbed the 600, which is going to be good. Take this for the outside. I mean, this is now, wipe it down with some acetone. It's ready to apply a gel coat or paint. So the idea here, let's say that this is the hull. Now it's going to be a lot thicker than this. We flared this out. We're going to do that on both sides, the interior and the exterior. And what I like to do is I start with the exterior first. And if you just try to put your small pieces in this hole, it's just kind of going to fall right through. So what I like to do is I'll take 2 or 3 pieces, and we start, remember when we're filling the hole, we want the smallest to the largest. But on this process, we're going to take the largest, like this. We're going to wet all this out nice and thorough. Then we do that on a piece of plastic, flip that over, and stick that in that hole. It's going to stick pretty well. So on the outside, start from the outside. I've got a piece of chopped mat, 1708, chopped mat, another 1708, actually 2 pieces of 1708, and finally the chopped mat. Now that'll be level because you've beveled this out. That's on the outside. Now we go to the inside, and we're going to have that little hole. So what I do is I take a little bit of epoxy, set it just like we did on this one, mix just a small amount with the fairing compound. Just you only need like a tablespoon or two. So we're going to fill that gap from the fronts that we had on the outside. We don't want any air holes in this. So if we were to try to put the compound, the thickened epoxy, on this first, it just push right through. Now we've got a little bit of a backing to it. We're going to fill that. Now on the inside, we're going to be a little bit more structural. Well, that's still soft. We're going to start laying in our fiberglass. I'm going to start with a 1708 chop mat. And this is where we're going to be extra thick. We're going to use the woven robe, which is a 14 ounce, and you can see how thick that is compared to the others that we're working with. Then we're going to do another sheet of 1708, another woven rove, and finally a chop mat. Now, depending on how thick your hull is, you may need to do a few more sheets than what I did right here. And again, when we get to doing the rolling, we don't want to push really hard. We just want to go enough to get the air bubbles out. We don't want to push the resin, the epoxy, out of the fiberglass. Let that dry, sand it down. Now you've got a really strong finish because you've got the outside pushing up and it's been flared. You've got the inside holding it down. So this is going to be a very structurally sound repair. And don't be afraid to use a couple extra sheets of fiberglass here, especially on the inside. The outside, you want to keep that nice and smooth. Just make sure it's good and sound. Now you see, working from below the waterline takes a little bit more effort. And keep in mind that once you get done, now the smaller hole probably won't make that much of a difference with barrier coating. If you get a bigger hole, a bigger area, you're probably going to want to put a barrier coat on that. Although today's epoxies are pretty good waterproofing, it's still not a bad idea to put a little bit of barrier coat on. And keep in mind, bottom paint is not barrier coating. It's not waterproofing. So you want to get a barrier coat on that before you put your bottom paint on. Well, until next time, happy and safe boating to you, your family, and friends.